me 24, and constantly feeling like I'm one of the only ones actually awake. Not a hashtag, feminist. Not a bio in emoji, feminist. I mean, actually aware of power structures. The quiet stuff nobody wants to admit exists. Every day feels like navigating a system that was never designed with you in mind. It's draining. Most of my energy gets burned, dodging non-stop, toxic masculinity, at work, on the sidewalk. Dating is the absolute worst. My friends say I overthink it, but I see the patterns plain as day for years. I had exactly one safe place. My best friend Evan, known him since high school. He was, and yeah, past tense matters, the exception. The 2 a.m. phone call guy, the one who listened instead of centering himself. He was proof men could be decent. They just usually decided not to be. Our friendship felt perfect, balanced. I could say anything without filtering myself. Rant about men, about systems, about dating horror stories. And he'd just agree, nod along, say, yeah, you're right, he got it. Or at least I thought he did. Things started cracking a few months back. I made a post online, nothing wild, just calling out how men fake incompetence at home, how suddenly they don't know how to clean or cook, so women end up doing everything standard stuff. The reaction was immediate and feral. DMs full of angry dudes. Comments section turned into a fragility landfill. One of those moments that just sucks the air out of you, makes everything feel pointless, chest tight, equal parts rage and exhaustion. So I did what I always do, called Evan. He answered instantly. Same calm voice. I unloaded everything. The comments, the twisting of my words, how they were literally proving my point. I was rambling, probably tearing up from sheer burnout. He didn't cut me off once, just let me go. When I finally stopped, he said exactly what I needed, said I was brave, said I was right, said those guys were insecure and threatened, validated every feeling, felt like aloe on a burn. I hung up lighter, told him he was the best, a model male ally. He just made this quiet noise and we ended the call. I felt unstoppable again. That was our setup. He was my emotional support. I gave him perspective, helped him grow, seemed like a fair trade of emotional labor. Around then, I was also chasing something with a guy from my gym, total opposite of Evan. Huge, silent, confident in a way that bordered on smug, a challenge. I know how it sounds, but it didn't contradict my beliefs. If I could get a guy like that, a textbook alpha, to respect me and my feminism, that would be a win-proof. Even the worst stereotypes could evolve. It was kind of a project, so I went all in, worked out near him, asked for spots I didn't need. Eventually he asked for my number, massive W. We planned a date for the weekend. I was buzzing. First person I wanted to tell was Evan. Also needed his help. I was spiraling. No idea what to wear. Called him and basically demanded an emergency outfit consult. He showed up an hour later with my usual coffee. Of course he did. Reliable as always. One of his best traits. Dumped half my closet onto the bed. Held clothes up one by one. Kept asking, this one? Too desperate? This one? Does this say confident woman owning her sexuality? Or does it scream easy? He was trying, but something felt off. Way quieter than normal. Just vague stuff. Like, yeah, that looks fine. No energy, no real input. Honestly, it annoyed me. I needed him locked in for this. I finally picked a black dress as more skin than I usually show. Asked one last time if it was okay. He stared at me for a second too long. Said, it looked great. Tone was weird, almost heavy, sad maybe. I ignored it. Figured he was just burnt out from work. Then came the real favor. Gym guy picked a place clear across town. Total nightmare to get to. No way. I'm riding a bus in that dress. Didn't want to pay for a ride share either. So I asked Kyle for a ride. He paused. Actual hesitation. First time I'd ever seen that. Said he planned to work on a personal project. I laughed. Told him that could wait. This was an emergency. Used my best pleading tone. Said I'd owe him. After a few quiet seconds, he agreed. Obviously, car ride was uncomfortable. I was buzzing, nervous and excited. So I talked nonstop about the gym guy, how attractive he was, how refreshing it felt to be around a man confident in his masculinity. Might have said something about being tired of weak passive men. Not Kyle, obviously. He was different. He was my friend. But I noticed his hands tightening on the wheel. He didn't say a single word, just stared straight ahead. I barely clocked it, head completely elsewhere. He dropped me off a block away like I asked. I jumped out, quick thanks, you're the best. Didn't even wait for a reply. The date sucked. Gym guy was painfully boring. Only talked about macros and workout splits. Never asked me anything. Tried bringing up real topics. His eyes glazed over. He wasn't confident. He was shallow, not enlightened, just empty. Paid the bill, walked me to the corner. Awkward half hug. That was it. No text, no follow-up. Just vanished. I wasn't hurt. I was pissed. Wasted time. Pure arrogance. Another case of toxic male behavior. Use a woman for validation. Then discard. I stewed all day. By evening I was drained again. That familiar rage-exhaustion combo. I needed my outlet. I needed Kyle. Needed him to say I was right. That the guy was trash. Called him. Went straight to voicemail. Weird. He never ignored me. Texted. Emergency need to talk. An hour passed. Nothing. Now I'm irritated and worried. Maybe he was mad about the car ride. So petty if true. I backed off. Gave him space. Days went by. Still nothing. Messages not even delivered. Did he block me? No. That's insane. Anxiety creeping in. What if something happened? But the annoyance hit harder. How do you disappear when I need you? After years, felt like betrayal. I tried one last thing. Called him from a friend's phone. It rang. He answered. Instant relief. I didn't let him speak. It just dumped everything. How worried I was. How I'd been trying to reach him. How awful the date was. Needed to tell him all of it. Silence. Long silence. When I stopped to breathe, his voice was flat. Cold. Asked, Sophia, what do you want? It stunned me. So aggressive, I said I wanted to talk to my best friend. Long pause. Then he said we should meet. Told me to come to the park near his place. I was confused but agreed. Assumed he wanted to apologize when I got there. He was already on a bench. Looked different. Thinner, maybe, but sitting straighter. He didn't stand when I walked up, just stayed on the bench. I sat beside him, ready to unload the whole gym guy disaster. But his face stopped me cold. No warmth, no concern, just blank, like someone turned him off. I asked what was wrong, why he'd been dodging me. He looked at me, actually looked, and said he couldn't do this anymore. I blinked, had no clue what that meant. Do what? I asked. This, he said, waving. His hand between us, our friendship. I honestly thought he was joking, laughed a little. He said he wasn't, then he dropped it. Said he'd had feelings for me, for years. My stomach sank. Oh no, that thing, the exact scenario. I always fear the nice guy reveal, friends only because he wants more. Disappointment hit hard. I really thought he was different. He kept going, same flat voice, said being my support. Listening while I chased other men was slowly wrecking him. Brought up the car ride, said, driving me to that date, hearing me talk about the gym guy, was the most humiliating moment of his life. I tried to jump in, tell him he had it wrong, that he wasn't like those guys, but he didn't stop, said he was done. Done being my emotional trash can, done waiting for me to notice him, done putting his life on pause for me. I was stunned, brain racing, trying to fix this. He was my best friend. I couldn't lose him. I needed him, so I defaulted. The standard line, the one that lets a guy down gently, keeps the friendship intact. I touched his arm, looked at him seriously, said it softly. Oh, Kyle, I had no idea. I'm really sorry, but I could never see you like that. You're like a brother to me. I waited for the nod, the sad acceptance. It never came. He didn't look hurt, didn't look crushed. He just stared at me. And for the first time, I saw something flicker. Not sadness, pity. He felt sorry for me. He slowly pulled his arm away, stood up, looked down at me, said, I know, that's the problem. Then he turned and walked off. I sat there frozen, watched him until he disappeared around a corner. He never looked back, not once. I expected guilt, maybe sadness. Instead, I felt irritated, inconvenienced. How could he do this? Throw away years over his feelings? So selfish, so male. I was the one losing a friend because he couldn't manage his emotions. I sat there a long time, convinced. He'd messed up. He'd cool down, realize he was overreacting. He'd come back. He always did. I went home annoyed, not truly worried, gave him a week in my head, then he'd apologize. Our friendship was too important to just end. I was sure of it. A week passed, nothing, 2 weeks, still silence. Panic finally crept in. Everything felt off without him. Little stuff kept happening, stuff I'd normally tell him. A condescending comment from my boss, a terrible movie, something funny on the street. My thumb kept hovering over his name, then stopping. The silence was loud. I realized how much I leaned on him, not just for breakdowns, but for everyday life. He was my audience, the one who validated my experiences without him. Everything felt unfinished, unacknowledged. Panic turned into anger. This was a power move. That's all it was. Punishment for rejecting him, emotional manipulation, classic toxic masculinity. He wanted me to miss him, to crawl back, give him what he wanted. It wasn't happening. I was strong, independent. I didn't need male validation, certainly not his, so I doubled down, went out more, had fun, posted pictures, made sure he could see how fine I was without him. That was supposed to prove his little tantrum meant nothing, that I was unaffected, that I'd moved on. That weekend, I went out with friends, crowded bar, loud music. I spent the whole night forcing myself to have fun, talked to a few guys. They blurred together. One tried explaining my own politics to me. Another wouldn't shut up about crypto. A third kept finding excuses to touch my lower back. Every interaction drained me more. None of them actually listened. They just waited for their turn to perform, to impress, to extract something. I went home feeling emptier than when I left. Lay in bed staring at the ceiling, and it hit me hard. I missed him. Not male attention, not validation. My friend, his dumb jokes, his easy laugh, the way he always knew what to say. The anger deflated instantly, left this hollow ache. This wasn't a tactic, wasn't a game. It was real. He was gone, and I'd pushed him there. That realization was terrifying. Everything felt colder, sharper, no safety net. For the first time, I was alone with my thoughts, and they were brutal. My confident worldview suddenly felt thin, like cardboard in a storm. I'd been so sure I understood gender dynamics, but I completely misread the most important one in my life. I took his kindness as weakness, his loyalty as obligation, his love as a free, unlimited resource. And now it was gone. The well was dry. The next month was anxiety mixed with denial, constantly checking my phone, hoping for a message that never came. I even walked past his apartment a few times, pretending it was coincidence, never saw him. My friends noticed. I got quieter, pulled back. When they asked what was wrong, I couldn't say it out loud. How do you admit your emotional stability depended on one man, a man you took for granted until he broke? It contradicted everything I preached. I was supposed to be strong, independent, didn't need anyone, but I was unraveling. My online activism felt empty. My confident takes sounded fake. I felt like a fraud. I spent years criticizing men for exploiting women's emotional labor. While quietly being the biggest exploiter myself, that thought haunted me, kept me awake. I'd become what I hated. The weeks after were a new kind of hell. Quiet, boring, mundane. My life used to feel full of purpose. Now it felt like an endless empty hallway. I tried filling the space. Work, activism, social plans. Everything felt contaminated. I'd be in a meeting. Boss makes a mildly condescending comment. My instinct was to draft the text to Mark, the one that would get a reply in minutes, telling me I was right, that my boss was textbook mediocre male authority. Then I'd remember, and the urge would die, leaving me alone with it. I'd be out with friends, someone complaining about dating apps. I'd give my usual feminist breakdown, commodification, emotional immaturity, but my words sounded hollow, like slogans, disconnected from the ache in my chest. Friends nodded, but it wasn't the same. They didn't know my history, my triggers, my specifics. His validation was tailored, personal, and gone. The loneliness was the worst part, felt physical, a weight pressing down, making mornings hard. I always thought I was self-sufficient. I lectured people about not tying self-worth to men. Yet here I was drifting, because one man withdrew his attention. The irony was suffocating. I started replaying our entire friendship in my head, years of conversations on loop, and suddenly it was obvious at every time I called him to rant about some guy, dumped everything on him. then hung up the second I felt better, never once asking how he was. All the plans I canceled last minute because something better came up. The way I talked about wanting a real man, a challenge right in front of him, completely blind to how that must have landed. Each memory burned, pure shame. I hadn't treated him like a friend, I treated him like a service, emotional support, confidant, cheerleader, fix-it guy, driver. And what was I to him? A reminder of what he'd never have. I shoved him into the best friend box, and by doing that, I erased his humanity. He wasn't a person with needs. He was a supporting character in my life. And when he tried to step out of that role and to be the lead in his own story, I shut him down. With the most condescending line imaginable. "You're like a brother to me." It was a lie. I didn't treat him like family. I wouldn't dare treat a sibling that carelessly. I treated him like property. This realization didn't hit all at once. It came slowly, painfully, like cleaning out an infected wound. It hurt. But for the first time, I was seeing clearly. My entire worldview cracked. I wasn't fighting a system. I was hiding behind its language, using it to justify being selfish. I ranted about toxic masculinity, while practicing my own kind of toxicity, just dressed up differently. The awareness crushed me. I didn't know who I was anymore. If I wasn't the strong, righteous feminist, then what? Just another person who used people up. The thought was unbearable. After almost 2 months of this mental isolation, I snapped. I was home alone, trying to assemble a cheap bookshelf. Instructions made no sense. Screws kept slipping, frustration building until my eyes burned. It was stupid, simple, and I couldn't do it. And I knew, with total certainty, that if I called Mark, he'd be there in 20 minutes. He'd figure it out calmly, put it together, crack a dumb joke, make me feel okay. I sat on the floor, surrounded by particle board, and broke down. I wasn't crying about the shelf. I was crying about him, about the kindness I wasted, the friend I lost. That's when I knew I couldn't live with the silence. I had to talk to him, not to get my support system back, not to fix my loneliness, to apologize, to face him as a person, and say, I finally understood. No excuses, no framing myself as the victim. I owed him that. I didn't have his number. He was gone from my socials, but I knew where he worked. Boring office job downtown. Showing up felt unhinged. Borderline stalker behavior. But I had no other option. I spent days rehearsing, wrote speeches, ripped them up. They all sounded fake, self-serving. So I decided to keep it simple. No manipulation, no tears, just the truth. I'd say sorry, I'd say he was right, and then I'd leave him alone forever. That was the plan. I picked a Thursday, felt nauseous all morning, hands sweaty, heart racing, took the train downtown, got to his building. 15 minutes before noon, knew his lunch break timing, stood across the street. Pretending to be casual, felt painfully obvious. Every minute dragged. I almost bailed over and over. What if he ignored me? What if he yelled? What if he turned around? But I stayed. Then just after 12, the doors opened. Office workers poured out, and there he was. My breath caught. It was him, but not the version I knew. Buttoned down, slacks, nothing special, but his posture was different. Shoulders back, head up, no apologetic slump. He looked solid, confident. He was laughing with a coworker, a real laugh, the kind I hadn't heard in years. He looked good, healthy, happy, and a horrible thought hit me. He's better without me. It felt like getting punched in the gut. For half a second, I wanted to turn around and bolt, pretend I was never there, but I'd already come too far. I took a breath, waited for traffic, crossed the street, heart pounding. I walked up behind him, right as his coworker waved and split off. I said his name, Ryan. He stopped, turned slowly. The smile vanished instantly. Not anger, not shock, just blank, neutral, like I was a stranger who'd made a mistake. Hey, he said, calm. I had 1,000 words ready, every apology rehearsed, and my mind went empty, total static. He waited. The silence was brutal. I panicked and blurted the worst possible thing. You just disappeared. It came out weak, accusatory. I said I was worried. It wasn't true. I was inconvenienced, and he knew it. Something flickered across his face. Not anger, boredom, I didn't disappear, he said. I started living my life. You should try it. It hit like a slap. I scrambled, tried to get back on script. I know I messed up. I came to apologize for everything, for how I treated you. He nodded slowly, never looked away, didn't say it's okay, didn't say thanks, gave me nothing. I started rambling, words spilling out. I took you for granted. I used you. I was a horrible friend. I see that now. I miss you. I miss my best friend. The second it left my mouth, I knew that was the mistake. Back to centering myself, my needs, my feelings. His posture shifted, subtle, final. He was about to end it, say something permanent, but then it happened. A woman walked out of the building, average height, brown hair in a ponytail, jeans, t-shirt, nothing striking, just normal. She saw him, and her whole face lit up. A real smile, pure happiness. She walked straight to him, didn't even acknowledge me. Hey you, ready for lunch. The change in him was instant. The cold mask vanished. His face softened. He smiled. The same genuine smile I'd seen earlier. Yeah, 1 second. His voice gentle. He didn't introduce us, didn't explain to him. I was just someone in the way. She glanced at me, polite, uninterested, then looked back at him and touched his arm. Small gesture, casual, intimate. It felt like getting struck by lightning. In that touch, I saw everything. Comfort, inside jokes, mutual respect, history. This wasn't new. While I'd been spiraling, he'd been building something real. A life without me, not excluding me, just not designed for someone like me at all. He hadn't just moved on. He'd leveled up, found someone who saw him as a partner, not a tool, someone who touched him with affection, not manipulation. I stood there frozen, reality crashing down. My apology, my closure, all meaningless. Too late. I wasn't a turning point. I was an interruption. The humiliation burned, face hot, chest tight. I'd assumed he was miserable, waiting for me, that my apology would be a gift, something he'd gratefully accept. He didn't need it. He already had happiness. He looked at me one last time, no anger, no resentment, nothing. The look you give an old couch you're leaving behind. I have to go. Not an excuse. Age or so. Fact. He turned away, put his hand on her lower back, protective, familiar. They walked off together. I heard her laugh, light, happy, echoing between buildings. I stayed there, watching until they turned the corner, perfectly in sync. Then they were gone. I'd never felt that alone. The story I'd told myself, me as the hero, him as the loyal side character, was a lie. He was always the hero of his own life. And I wasn't even the villain, just the obstacle in chapter 1. The friend zone wasn't power. It was a cage. I'd built it, and he'd found the key, walked out, leaving me locked inside. I stood on that corner as people rushed past, living their lives, and for the first time, I understood power, toxicity, dynamics. They were real. I'd just been standing on the wrong side of them the whole time.